So I ran for this office to help more young people go to college, graduate, and pay off their debt. And we've made some really good progress, despite the best efforts of some in Congress to block that progress. Think about how much more we could do if they were not standing in the way. This week, they have a chance to help millions of young people. I hope they do. In the meantime, I'm going to take these actions today on behalf of all these young people here and every striving young American who shares my belief that this is a place where you can still make it if you try.
Cycling now, President Obama using his pen to help write down crushing student loan debt. He just signed an executive order expanding his original action that capped monthly payments at 10% of discretionary income. Now an estimated 5 million additional students can cash in on that opportunity. Tomorrow he will join the founder and CEO of Tumblr to answer questions from students from across the country about stemming this college loan debt crisis. All of it certainly focused on stopping the bleeding. But there's clearly a larger problem looming. The cost of college is setting us up to fail right out of the gate. Student loan debt hit $1 trillion last year, $1 trillion. Wow. Default rates are rising at a double-digit pace because, let's face it, how are you supposed to pay all that money back when unemployment among 25 to 34-year-olds is the highest of any age group in America? It is the perfect storm. Matt Siegel has thrown himself right in the middle of that storm as co-founder of OurTime.org. He's fighting the good fight along with Congressman Peter Welch, Democrat from Vermont. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining me today. And Congressman, I wanted to ask you out of the gates, how much of a difference will these new actions by the president make?
Well, it's going to make a huge difference for the 5 million kids that are going to be affected. It means for them that the maximum that they'll have to pay on a monthly basis, and it's a lot, is 10% of their annual income. So that is terrific for the 5 million kids. But for everybody not included, we still have a long mountain to climb.
Matt, it just seems immoral for the government to charge students more interest, a higher interest rate than it charges the banks to borrow money. Senator Elizabeth Warren's been banging this gong quite hard for quite a while. I'm talking about the immorality of this and talking about how this is just painful, hurtful to our future. Tell us how bad this is, Matt.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. But in spite of the machinations over student loan interest rates and trying to change whether it's 3%, 4%, 7% that you pay back, these all make a small positive difference. The president made a small positive difference today, and I agree with the congressman. But what we should really be asking ourselves is, why has college gone up 1,000% since the year 1978? Why are more and more states cutting higher education funding? Who's getting rich off this high tuition? And why aren't we investing in these common sense alternatives like free community college that a Republican governor in Tennessee just embraced, or what Oregon's doing to say free college enrollment, but then you'll pay back 3% of your taxes for 21 years as a tax burden to thank the state for at least investing in you in the front end. These are no-brainers, and we should be shifting the paradigm toward this as opposed to these yearly debates over whether we're going to pay 3%, 6%, and whether we're going to allow people to have a cap on their interest rates, et cetera.
Yeah. Congressman, I mean, we should be doing these things to help students pay off the debt, but the biggest issue to me seems to be the skyrocketing costs of college education. If we can't begin solving that problem, debt is forever going to be a problem. So how do we tackle that?
Well, first of all, I absolutely agree with that. We've got to have a cost-side approach. And there's things that we can do and things that we should do. Trey Gowdy and I have a bill that would do two things. One, let the colleges make some recommendations on regulations where we can give them some relief to lower cost. Secondly, give them flexibility to try to accelerate graduation. Let high school kids take courses. Give competency-based credit so kids can get out in less than 4 years rather than more than 5 years. Third, what I'd like to see us do is help with energy retrofits in our college campuses. That's an area where the federal government's making progress to save money on our federal buildings. Let's help the colleges. And then four, let's encourage colleges to end the arms race. You know, it's great to live in a really fancy dorm. It's great to have a tremendous athletic facility, but it's not so great to have the debt that goes along with paying for that for 30 years after you graduated. So we've got to focus on the cost.
Matt, I wanted to ask you, one thing that I find interesting is when I went to school, I'm only about 6 years out, I had a lot of colleagues that would talk about the crushing student debt they were very worried about facing as they moved on in life, but then they'd also talk about the fact that they had received half scholarships at other schools, and some of them would end up getting a liberal arts degree that did not have a real high earning value after college graduation. And so the question I would ask is, should the government do more, and should groups do more to try and steer students coming out of high school to making wiser financial decisions when it comes to student loans? Maybe take the half scholarship and not go to the school which is going to saddle you with all that debt. Maybe pursue the computer networking degree that has a better payout instead of doing something like art history right off the bat.
At the end of the day, I think it's a conversation people need to have with their families way in advance of going to college. What kind of track do you want to be on? If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, yes, you need liberal arts training and background. If you want to be a professor, if you want to in any way go into a field that requires critical thinking, liberal arts is great. But if you know you want to be a computer scientist or an engineer, there are 2- and 3-year and 1-year vocational colleges that are a relevant and appropriate opportunity for you that will not amass as much personal debt. So I think it comes back to long-term planning. I don't think the federal government should be in the business of telling students how to think, but I do think that we should have a PR campaign collectively to say, how are we going to prep long-term to ameliorate debt and shift the paradigm, like I said, away from deficit financing of college, more towards grants and free college, because we want a more educated society as a collective, not a less educated society, and that will pay itself back many times over again.
That's right.
I know someone who could do that PR campaign, do it pretty well, huh?
I'm trying my best.
You would be terrific at that. And Matt, I think that speaks to something else you've been talking about, which is increased transparency so students understand the ramifications of the choices that they make. Matt Siegel and Congressman Peter Welch. Keep